Welcome to the Packer Mentality Podcast. I'm here to keep you updated and provide insights on everything Packers, both on and off the field. To my dedicated listeners and viewers, a huge thank you for your continued support and engagement. Your participation has been key to the growth of this channel. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe, leave your comments, and join me on social media at Packer Mentality. You can find this podcast on all major platforms. The Packers have finalized their roster, cutting down to the final 53. There were some really tough decisions this year and a few surprises that happened today. Let's take a look at how things ended up, and I'm going to focus mostly on players that made the roster or that I think will make the practice squad. Starting at quarterback, obviously Jordan Love, but behind him, Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt both get released after a really uninspiring battle for the number two spot during the preseason. One of them is likely to end up on the practice squad, and most of what I hear says that it will be Sean Clifford staying in Green Bay. Instead, the Packers trade a seventh round pick to the Titans for Malik Willis. He was highly touted coming out of college, went to Liberty. I wasn't a huge fan of him coming out of college, but I have heard the last 24 hours or so that he has made some strides and has shown a lot of improvement. So I'm going to withhold judgment until we see him in a game, which hopefully isn't until preseason next year. At running back, Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, and Emmanuel Wilson making the roster. A.J. Dillon was put on season-ending injured reserve. This might be it for A.J. in Green Bay. Either Ellis Merriweather or Nate McCrary will be on the practice squad. At wide receiver, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Malik Heath, and Bo Meldon. I just love this group. And if anything, I'd have been okay with them keeping one more receiver if that had been Grant Dubose. Dubose had a really good preseason, but I think he'll make it to the practice squad. At tight end, Packers keep Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Ben Sims. No real surprises here. Tyler Davis was put on injured reserve. He will miss the entire season. There should be a place on the practice squad for another tight end, someone like Joel Wilson. Offensive line. Packers keep Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Rasheed Walker, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan, Andre Dillard, Jacob Monk, Kadeem Telfort, and Travis Glover. They kept 10, and honestly, I think they could have gotten away with keeping 8 or 9. Glover probably would have made it to the practice squad, but we know Goody loves to try and keep his draft picks most of the time. We do finally say goodbye to Royce Newman, a name that most of us expected to see on the cut list today. I don't celebrate guys losing their jobs, but he did earn this with his play the last couple of years. Defense. We definitely got some surprises here, but we'll start with defensive end. We got Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Enagbare, Brenton Cox Jr., and Aaron Mosby. We saw Mosby have a terrific preseason, and he earned a spot on this roster, fought his way onto the roster. Good for him. Zero surprises at defensive tackle. Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, and Colby Wooden. Jonathan Ford received one of the injured reserve designated to return spots, which means he's going to miss the first 4 weeks. This kind of surprised me. I don't think he really stood out during the preseason and thought this might be the time for the Packers to cut ties with him, but he will stick around. Inside linebacker, Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, Eric Wilson, Edgerrin Cooper, and Tyron Hopper. The big surprise here was that the Packers released Christian Welch after he was probably the best player on the defense throughout the preseason. I mean, he was fantastic, but In his case, it just wasn't enough. This room was full. I won't be surprised if another team scoops him up, but if not, I am sure he'll be back on the Packers practice squad. At cornerback, a lot of familiar faces. Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Corey Ballantyne. No surprises, but one small surprise came with the release of seventh round pick Kalen King, who played pretty well in the preseason and showed some promise. But being a draft pick didn't save him in this case. I am rooting for him to be on the practice squad. At safety, Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Zane Anderson, and Katan Oladapo. Going to get up on my soapbox a little bit. I do have some issues with this group. The Packers released Anthony Johnson Jr. after he had a really strong preseason. He is a better player and a better safety than Zane Anderson. Anderson is making the roster because he is one of Rich Bisaccia's special team guys. You know, the special teams that are still below average despite all the guys who only make the team because they play special teams. Hopefully that turns around this season and makes this worthwhile. I do expect Johnson to be on the practice squad if he isn't picked up by another team. Continuing with the special teams, the Packers did release kicker Anders Carlson, who I thought would be the kicker, up until the moment he shanked that 32-yarder late in the game against the Ravens, which means Greg Joseph is the new Packers kicker. Daniel Whelan is back as the punter, and Matt Orzech is still the long snapper. Starting at noon Eastern Time on the 28th, the Packers will be able to begin signing players to their practice squad. We'll see who they can keep around. On Monday, I'm going to have some predictions for the 2024 season, and I will give you 5 things that I believe must happen for the Packers to be Super Bowl contenders. And then on Wednesday, I will have my Eagles preview, so stay tuned for those episodes. Until that time, please take a minute to subscribe and follow me on social media. Have a great week, everyone, and go Pack Go.